Hi, thanks for clicking on this video link. I'm going to introduce myself and this channel a little bit first, and then I'll start talking about what this channel will be about. Um, so the name Ajita Nathaki. Ajita is Hindu. I am not Hindu, by the way. I do not, I may be mispronouncing the name, I don't know, but the idea is the meaning here. Ajita means invincible. Natha is Sanskrit. It means master. It also happens to be another way of referring to the Hindu god Shiva. And ki is the Japanese word for energy. So together they mean invincible master energy. Energy channeling is not the only thing I will be talking about. There will be other topics, esoteric principles of spirituality and whatnot. And I'm not going to be talking about how to channel energy, but I will instead discuss what you can do with it and some uses and functions for energy channeling, in particular to the expansion of mind consciousness and living your best life. I'm also not going to be teaching meditation. There are plenty of other videos out there that explain that process, many different examples of how it can be done quite effectively. And I'm just not comfortable teaching meditation. It's always seemed to me a bit contrived. Really, the ideal meditation is done in silence, or you can listen to music. I prefer to listen to music, but basically by yourself without listening to somebody talking to you. So I don't find spoken meditation to be all that effective. However, if it works for you, that's great. It's just it doesn't work for me. In this channel, I'm going to try to explain certain spiritual principles that perhaps are not well known. I will also speak about how to live from a spiritual perspective in your daily interactions with folks. And in particular, how to deal with those challenging experiences in life that we all face, being human beings. We're here for a particular purpose. We have challenges, and if we don't have those challenges, we don't grow. And sometimes we need a little bit of guidance and a reminder about what those challenges are about and the purpose that they serve in our development. So I am not going to share my real name. I'm rather, well, I have a professional life that I'd like to keep separate from this. So for that reason, I'm not going to share my real name. And any of my colleagues, friends out there, people that I have taught these energy principles to in the past, if you know who I am and you know my name, I'm going to ask kindly, do not write it in the comments. Yeah, just don't do that, please. I'm trying to keep that separate, and there's a real good reason for that. All right, so I'm going to ask instead that you refer to me as Oshaya. Oshaya, interestingly, is the name of my spirit. Now, how do I know that? Well, I was told that in a dream vision, not so much directly by some voice, but rather experiencing it and hearing it. And I heard my name pronounced, I guess you could say, through an angelic voice, or it's a sound that cannot be produced by the human voice box. So yeah, so I'm just gonna say Oshaya. That's as close as a human mouth can produce, and it's actually, the real name is actually much longer. It's just oh, and by the way, I mean the same syllables and overall same sounds. It's just the spiritual version is longer. It's just pronounced, drawn out, like Oshaya, something like that. I can't do it. But anyway, I'm just going to ask you to call me Oshaya. This channel is non-denominational. I don't know if you can notice, but right about here, there is a white jade statue of Guan Yin. And over here is the Hindu god Shiva. Elsewhere, you will see other spiritual relics in my office. I don't remember exactly where they are right now, but I have crosses and other things always around me. So it's really non-denominational, but I will be speaking primarily from the teachings that are shared in the Christian Bible, but I will mention, of course, principles of Buddhism, Hinduism, and most of the world religions at some point or another. But I don't have a particular favorite. However, I most likely will tend to talk about principles of Christianity because that's what most people around here in America. I'm going to be doing the same video in Spanish. In Mexico, they're mostly Christian as well. So I'm going to be sharing, I believe, because this is my first video, mainly examples from Christian teachings. But my personal philosophy is I'm not a Christian, I'm not a Hindu, I'm not a Buddhist, but I respect all religions, and I may talk about what the purpose of a religion is sometime down the road. So a little bit about my background. I have had an interest in spirituality, in some aspect of psychic ability for as long as I can remember. I've had experiences of deja vu that were really quite profound and super detailed, including thoughts, sounds, images about things and experiences that are not typical, random, but yet not typical events in moments that I have lived. And it is that experience that prompted me to look deeper and longer into psychic abilities. And I kind of taught myself pranayama actually I did it on my own, not knowing what I was doing. And I went to my first Reiki training. And we were told, okay, if you do this and this happens, and that's not Reiki, that's prana. And basically that means you're channeling away your life energy. And so I stopped doing pranayama immediately. But anyway, so I have been trained in advanced Reiki. I cannot say the name of the Reiki type because it's trademarked. And I don't want to take away from them or have any issues with anybody. I respect everyone's work, so I'd just rather not get into that. But that's more or less where I started in terms of an official training. Shortly after going through my Reiki training, I also went into just searching what else was out there, and I found the Institute of Thought in San Diego. That's mainly where I'm from. I don't live there at the moment. But I learned the 15th step, which was discovered by Dr. Joseph Costa, who incidentally, and maybe it's part of the reason why I'm recording these videos now and starting now, he passed away yesterday. I had some interactions with Dr. Costa and found him to be a very interesting character. Those of you who knew him will understand what I mean by that. But he definitely had an impact on me. However, the majority of my interactions with the folks at the Institute of Thought were with others, were with the people who basically ran the sessions in the groups. And Dr. Costa would meet us once in a while. But anyway, so the process is called the 15th step. And I sometimes have a bit of a challenge explaining what the 15th step is. There's a website that explains the 15th step. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on it, but essentially it's a technique for quieting the mind so that you can have greater access to your higher consciousness. However, in order to access your higher consciousness effectively, you have to energize the body and raise the mind's vibratory energies in order to reach your higher self, so that your higher self can communicate with, let's call them your guardian angels, or the spiritual entity that guides you through your life in that moment of your life. So you're able to ask questions and receive answers that are appropriate. They won't, for example, tell you what the winning numbers are for the lotto or anything like that. They will not make decisions for you. You have to live your own life. I mean, that is the reason why you are here. But anyway, so you're able to get information and have some things explained to you so that you can move through your life, through those challenging moments more effectively with more peace. And at the same time, there are other messages that are shared with you to help you grow and evolve as a person, as a spirit. So the reason that those two practices kind of went really well together is that the energy channeling just cleansed the sushumna, the seven chakras in the body, or aligned to the body more accurately. And the meditation practice was an exercise in quieting the mind. Well, both of those are components of the 15th step. And in the 15th step, there is a component there that is the calibration. And in the calibration, what you're trying to do is you raise the energy. And so having been an energy practitioner allowed me to raise my energy considerably in the 15th step. And being a frequent practitioner of the 15th step also allowed me to increase my energy channeling. So it was this recursive loop that made each one stronger, better, more effective. And so I just kept on doing that. So anyway, that's been my experience and background. I'll share a little bit more as I go further on in this video. So I'll get now to the why listen to me. And this is the part that you may find a little funny or weird, but I don't know why the hell you're listening to me. I honestly don't. I don't ever lie, and that's another thing that you may find about me through this video series. So I don't know how long I'm going to be doing these videos, but this is something that you'll learn about me, is I don't lie ever. Actually, the only time I will not lie is to not hurt someone's feelings. I do have a memory of that, and perhaps I'll share that one with you someday. But I also will lie if, for example, it saves someone's life. You know, I can't think of any such circumstance ever happening, but let's say that would be a circumstance, and then I would lie. But for the sake of money, finance, position, career, I will not lie ever to anyone, period. And so, I mean, that may be a quality that you may find interesting. But anyway, that's one of my characteristics. I don't necessarily call it a quality. But why listen to me? You know, honestly, there are a lot of other people out there. Thich Nhat Hanh, Eckhart Tolle, Dalai Lama, Pope Francis, who is one of my heroes, although, you know, people have some issues with him, actually with any of them. But they're all human beings. We all make mistakes. Nobody's perfect. There was one perfect being. He's not here right now. So the rest of us will make... Actually, I will say that he did make mistakes. And maybe someday I'll point to those. But nobody's perfect. So I don't want to hear any complaints or criticisms of any of those people that I just listed. Oh, and by the way, any negative comments in this comment section, I'm just going to delete them. So don't waste your time. Don't waste my time. We're just not going to go there. Okay? This is not for any kind of monetization. I don't want any fame, recognition. I don't want anybody's money. So I really don't care about anybody's negative comments. So let me just put that out there, and we'll maybe just say it once and then have to deal with it again. So in the 15th step, I'm able to speak with the masters. And if you've ever read the books by Dr. Brian Weiss, in particular Messages from the Masters, you know which masters I'm talking about. So those masters have asked me to do this video series. I've known about it, this request, for several years now, and I just never could get around to it because, you know, who the hell am I? I'm not a priest. I'm not a minister. I'm not a rabbi. I'm not a imam. I'm not a shaman. But what am I? I would say that I am a regular, everyday person. I have a career. I work, pay my bills. I have a family. So in that sense, I'm like anyone else out there. When you think of individuals like Thich Nhat Hanh or the Dalai Lama, you think of these individuals who are cloistered away in a secluded location with walls around them, and living their lives, and for good reason. They are held in very high regard. I wouldn't say that they're worshipped, because that's not their intent. But they're held in very high regard by their followers, and that's great. I'm not taking anything away from any of those people, but they're not. Their life is not the life of the average person, and that is something that I have had an issue with in studying spirituality, where that the message seems to be, if you read pretty much any book out there on the highest levels of spirituality in each religion, they speak of some kind of a monk or something along those lines, and they're highly evolved, and this may be their last lifetime, that kind of thing. And that's not everybody's life. Not everybody's going to become a monk. And I don't believe that God intends that to be the goal, for everybody to be some kind of a religious figure or a leader in any kind of religious organization, or even a member of any particular religious organization. God, is what's the word? I almost used the wrong word there, but he's neutral when it comes to those things. God honors all religions. Obviously, they're all about him, her. And you will hear me say sometimes it, because God doesn't have a gender. I'll speak more about my experiences about that in the future, but for now, I'm just going to say I'm just non-denominational. And I've just felt like, what can I bring to this, right? So I think speaking about spiritual living and implementing spiritual practices in the daily life, in the daily interactions, that's something that none of these people can really talk about. And so what I hope to do is to bring that perspective, that experience, that guidance in moments that I have either helped others through or lived myself directly. And so the idea is to share that little bit of wisdom that hopefully will get you through your those challenging moments, but more importantly, to help you evolve as a spiritual being. All right, so after I was trained in energy channeling, I started channeling energy everywhere. Another thing about me, another characteristic of mine, is that I don't care about anybody else's opinion of me. When you have no ego, and I don't know if that's necessarily a 100% accurate statement about me, but my ego is so small that, for all intents and purposes, it's not really there. But I will say that because of that, I just don't care, and so I just channel everywhere, anywhere, to anyone, and regardless of circumstance or what others may think or whoever is around me, I will channel energy, and those individuals that I have had interactions with in the past will attest that that's me. That's who I am. So I started channeling energy, and in those experiences, I can feel anybody pretty much who's a consistent energy channeler will be able to feel the bounce back of the negative energy coming out of the individual that is receiving the healing energy. And I'll explain negative energy at some other point, but this is not the time for that. So I would feel it, and I will share my observations, my comments about intuition to that person. And not everybody can feel energy channeling, but most people can. At least that has been my experience. And so as they felt the energy flowing, and as they confirmed, some kind of ailment, injury, situation, stress, whatever, exhibited itself in the body physically, We would talk about that, and they would confirm, yes, I've been dealing with this or I've been dealing with that. And so I mainly, of course, being around my friends more often than anybody else, they would ask, they would be inquisitive, and I would explain. And so it just naturally flowed that I started teaching them. And not only energy channeling, but also the 15th step. And so they brought their friends over and they became members of that little group. And I would just, continue to teach the energy channeling, the 15th step. One thing about me is that I used to be a voracious reader, not anymore. I hardly ever find anything. Well, anyway, I won't say much there, but I don't read as much as I used to. But I have read hundreds of books. And so I started teaching my friends. They brought other friends. And they all had some direct experience in the process, in the energy channeling. It got to the point, well, no, I'm sorry, that's not the right term. But everybody, after some time, felt the energy. Everybody at one point or another would go through the 15th step and have the direct experience of that. And so we would come out of that, those experiences, because not everybody went through at once. We would take turns. And we would talk about those experiences, and we would find commonalities around everybody's experiences. Sometimes two, sometimes three people would go through at once, and they would have a common experience. And so that really went a long way in getting people to trust the process. And so the group just became large, and over time it became so large that we would barely fit in my house. All the sessions were being done in my house. So we would gather in the living room, and meditation cushions wherever they could fit, and we would all gather, and it got to be too large. But anyway, so there was a fairly large group that just grew and started naturally. Again, mainly through word of mouth. I will give you a couple of examples of how that came to be. So both of these individuals I've known through my career, but and I'm not going to say their names. One was dealing with a very severe form of depression. I didn't know this at the time. I knew these things afterwards, but she was dealing with a lot of issues and went to some doctors. She was prescribed various medicines. None of it worked. My mother-in-law was giving massages informally through word of mouth, and through her contacts, this person was referred to her, and she shared some of her emotions and experiences. And my mother-in-law said, go talk to Oshaya. And it took some convincing, some prompting. I think it was around the third massage session where she finally did come and speak to me. And I listened to her issue. I realized very quickly what was happening. A negative entity had attached itself to her. I removed it fairly quickly. I also cleansed her house by astral projection, and removed all traces of the entity from her house and her family and herself. So in her experience, it was so immediate, so drastic, the difference between her depression and where she was at that point, that it was like a totally different person. She thanked me profusely. She went home. That was a Saturday evening. The very next morning, Sunday, and I believe it was like 6:30 or 7 a.m., some ridiculously early time. I am not a morning person, by the way. I hear this loud knocking on the door, and I'm like, who the hell is going to come knocking on my door this hour on a Sunday morning? So I go down there, kind of a little bit of with a chip on my shoulder, so to speak, just a little, attitude. And I open the door, and there's this guy there, and he had a very meek look about him, but he said, he introduced himself as the other person's husband, and basically said, I don't know what you did, but thank you. And So like, oh, okay, you're welcome. Sure, glad to do it. Um, and she went back, and after that, she then joined the group to practice how to protect herself from those entities, and she just grew from that. There was another person, more or less around the same time. Her experience was completely different. She happened to be visiting Spain in the summertime. She did her master's out there. And on one particular occasion, I'm not too familiar with what was happening at the time. I just remember that, how she explained it to me. She came across a Moorish guru. I'm not sure if he was North African or Hindu, but anyway, some kind of a spiritual teacher. And he saw her and said, your spiritual teacher is back in your home city. And then he proceeded to describe me. He didn't say my name, but he more or less, I guess, could see me. And as he was describing me to her, she realized whom he was referring to and knew right away that she needed to come and talk to me. So when she got back from Spain, she approached me a bit hesitantly, again, because of my relative position and in the organization. And she approached me and shared her experience. And I said, oh, okay, yeah, okay, you can come to the house and we'll do, you can be part of a session. And, that also happened. However, those are two kind of rare examples. Most of the folks joined the group through word of mouth, and then through their own direct experience just stuck around and continued participating. There's another person that I treated on I used to do this, I don't do this anymore, but I would attend some kind of a community-wide event, and I would do free energy channeling. So I treated this one person, and I raised her Kundalini so quickly, so strongly, she expressed later that she felt as if she were about to faint. So because she seemed interested, I invited her to the sessions. And I think she attended 2 or 3 times, but she stopped coming shortly after because the ideas were just too outlandish for her. So if outlandish spiritual practices and psychic abilities are not your thing, then maybe this is not the channel for you. But anyway, yeah, so there's other experiences that people have had dealing with me. I've also cleansed houses and people. I projected my thought images to the group while we were meditating. I did that not to show off or whatever. It had a purpose. But I did that many times for a long time. And then I stopped doing it when I realized that the group was at a good point where they didn't need it anymore. I was going to cover this one topic. I decided not to do it, maybe some other time. But just moving negative entities, that's fairly common. I do that a lot. So I am sharing a lot of things which sound a bit outlandish, and it may seem like I am bragging, and I assure you I am not, because again, I do not care. But I'm not doing this for money. This channel, I doubt will ever reach the numbers that would even create a penny of income. I'm not going to monetize it at any point anyway, so that's irrelevant. But just to show you the relative value of what I'm sharing here, what I'm giving away for free. A 2-day seminar of the 15th step currently runs $450. The advanced Reiki training that I attended 16 years ago, it's a total of 5 sessions, and the first one is $110, and the last one is $250. And of course, there's they increase from the first to the last. I have never charged for what I do. There was one time when we tried to do a holistic center and we had to pay rent. So Whatever I collected went straight into the rent. None of it ever went into my pocket. So I've never made any money from what I do. And mind you, people have offered me money and I've never accepted it. And I don't plan on doing that now. So yeah, for what it's worth. So back to my spiritual name. It means the blood of Christ. And I was told this in the same vision where I heard the name and what it meant. So the first time when I became aware of it, I was playing Frisbee with my two sons. They were 8 and 9, I believe, at the time, or 7 and 8, or somewhere thereabouts. They're 23 and 25 now. But anyway, we were playing Frisbee, and I felt the negative energy coming from somebody. And there was no one around us for at least 50 yards. So I became aware that the energy that I was channeling, and mind you, it's not my energy. I don't ever claim that this is my energy. This is divine energy. So the energy that was coming through me and emanating out was so strong that I could feel the bounce back coming from well over 50 yards away. And so I understood that there was something else going on. This is beyond Reiki. Excuse me. And so I started practicing this energy type more mindfully. And at the time I was living in an apartment complex, and they didn't have automatic payment. The smartphones didn't exist back then. At least I don't think they did. Anyway, they weren't very common back then. And the rental office basically expect you to drop off a physical check once a month. So I went to drop off my check. And one of the two receptionists, she and I got to talk a little bit, and she would feel, sometimes when I would channel energy to her, like, what are you doing? Because I can feel it. And like, oh, okay, and I would do this. And it was, different Reiki types. But when I channeled this new type, I said, oh, I can do a new type now. She said to me, I know, I could feel you even as you came around the corner. And I said, oh, okay, well, and so I tested, and I said, okay, so here's this one. And she felt it. And she, oh, okay, she described what it would feel like accurately. Then I did another one, and she also described that one accurately. And then I did this third one, the new one. I call it Christ blood because of the nature of how one visualizes the energy flow. And she had a very strong physical reaction to it. Her eye was flickering, and so I stopped immediately. She goes, yeah, that was way too strong. So that was 15, 16 years ago. The energy levels have increased dramatically, and I'm at a point now where I channel well over 50 different types of energy, different energies and energy types. There's energy bolts, balls, direct flowing of energy, and some of those, there's variants within them. So really, if you were to combine them all, we're probably in the 70 something. I don't know exactly how many. I lost count. There's no point in counting it, but there's many, many different types. Almost all of them well beyond the reach of Reiki. There was one session, and I did a healing session for a co-worker's son. He was dealing with a very severe disease, and she had other friends of hers there that night that I made the first visit to the hospital. And so I was going to channel this advanced Reiki type along with the new things that I was doing at the time. Again, this was like 15, 16 years ago. There was a Reiki Usui practitioner there among her friends, and this Reiki Usui person asked if she could join in on the channeling, and I said sure. So I started the process, and the boy was asleep. Her eyes just about bulged out of her head when she saw his body rising, breathing, mind you, not that he was levitating, just his body reacted to it very strongly. Sometimes his back would arch. And the energy was just that powerful, that strong, and this Reiki Usui's face just, expressed her very strong surprise at what she was witnessing. Anyway, so these are just different examples of what I'm able to do, what I'm able to teach to others, and that's really the intent. The purpose for these videos here is to teach, to share. There's no point in these abilities just staying with one person. They need to be shared. And I think the reason is to help humanity increase its consciousness, to help each individual, as long as they're willing, to grow. Because collectively, when our consciousness goes up, humanity's consciousness improves, and then we're able to move to the next level collectively. And that's really the goal here, is for all of us to move together, not for one or two individuals to make it out, but for those few who can, to help the others come up. Yeah, so hopefully this series will be interesting and useful to you, that you will find something here that you can glean on and grow from. I'm going to try to put my email in the comments box. I'm not exactly sure how to do that yet. I've never even set this up before, so forgive me if I make some errors. This is my first time. But I hope to record these maybe once or twice a week. Well, no, not twice a week, sorry. Maybe once a week or every 2 weeks, we'll see. But yeah, my time is quite busy, filled with other things and other activities. But I hope to come back and do another one of these soon. All right, thank you for listening.